Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear students, welcome back. So far having discussed the differences between series and parallel circuits, let's continue further by listing out few more differences. Now, as you can see, there are few differences that are listed out. Difference between series and parallel connections. The first one is known to us because in the previous lecture we have derived the effective resistance in series is nothing but the sum total of the individual resistors, and in parallel we know how do we arrive at the effective resistance. 1 by R effective is 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 and so on, as many resistors are there. Now coming to series, the second point, the series circuits have simple design and they are easier to understand. There are no complications because all the resistors are lined up one after another. So therefore, look wise the series circuits are simple and they are having a very relatively simpler design. But whereas in parallel things are different because branching out happens. Now let us see in parallel. Every unit that is connected in a parallel circuit gets equal voltage. So that is the advantage in parallel circuit. So any number of components or any number of resistors that you connect in the parallel circuit, we know that every resistor gets the equal voltage. So that is one advantage of parallel circuit. And then it becomes easy to connect or disconnect a new element without affecting the working of other elements. This is very, very important and it is a very major advantage of parallel circuit because the moment if you don't want to have a component, you can remove it. If you want, you can add it. This will never break the circuit chain because a branching happens. Suppose there are like 3 resistors and resistor 2 is found to be defective. The moment you remove resistor 2, the resistor 1 and 3 will still work because current flows through those 2 branches but never through the resistor 2. This does not happen in series. Now let us see, if one point breaks in the series circuit, the total circuit is broken. It is like there is one break in the circuit. If the circuit wires are broken or if the resistors are not connected, joined properly, then what happens? There is no flow of current from that point to the next point. So therefore the whole circuit fails. But this does not happen in parallel because there is a branching happening. So in only that branch the current does not flow, the rest through the other branches the current will flow. Now also in series circuit, the number of components in the circuits as they keep increasing, suppose you add more and more resistors in the series circuit, greater will be the resistance, which means what? Suppose I have 4 resistors each of 5 ohms each, then what will happen? I have total of 20 ohms. Now as the resistance increases, we know that from Ohm's law the current will reduce because inverse proportion. So as the components keep increasing, the current flowing through every component starts reducing. So this is one more disadvantage. Now let us come to the parallel, the last point. Parallel, what is the disadvantage we can think of? It requires lot of wires because every component has to have a separate branching out. So therefore R1 should have different number of wires, certain number of wires to function, R2, resistor 3 and so on. So this is one minor disadvantage with parallel, no doubt, but there is no failing of the overall circuit, only that particular component fails. If at all there is some issue with that, the rest all will be working. The last point in parallel, we cannot increase or multiply the voltage in a parallel circuit because every component is set to get the same voltage because one side is connected at the higher potential, the other side is at the lower potential. Each and every single component will get the same amount of voltage. So therefore voltage cannot be varied. Based on resistance, the current through each of these components can vary, but the overall voltage or the voltage across each of these resistors does not vary. So having studied so far about series and parallel, so we have listed out now some advantages of series, some disadvantages, some advantages of parallel, some disadvantages. Now, we know that the day to day in our domestic circuits in our home, we know that it's a parallel connection, because suppose there is a defective bulb, we do not see that the fan also stops working or other components stop working. So, which means the household connections are connected in parallel. So, one component goes, that can be replaced, the others still continue to function. Okay. Now, we come to this very crucial juncture where the question that was haunting us all through, why ammeter should be connected in series and voltmeter should be connected in parallel. So, we come to this very important juncture. If you see in the first diagram, ammeter is connected in series in the circuit. So, with the electric bulb ammeter, both are connected in series, and over this side a resistor, and to measure the voltage across that resistance we connect in parallel. Now, having discussed so far about series and parallel, I think it should be clear for us, because ammeter measures the current, and because current is same in the series circuit, so ammeter should be connected in series. Suppose we connect ammeter by chance in parallel, it does not measure the overall current, it only measures the current flowing through that particular branch. So, therefore, ammeter should be connected in series, because in series, since the current is constant overall in the whole of the circuit, at any point the current will be same in a series circuit. So, therefore, ammeter should be always connected in series, and voltmeter should always be connected in parallel, because voltmeter measures the voltage across the 2 points of the resistor. Now, in series circuits, the voltage across every resistor changes, but in parallel the voltage will remain constant. So, therefore, that is the reason we put ammeter in series and voltmeter in parallel. By chance, if we exchange their positions, we get a wrong reading of the current and wrong reading of the voltage. So, ammeter should always be connected in series, voltmeter should always be connected in parallel. Now, let us see how do we solve numericals on series and parallel circuits. So, the circuits may look very complex, the parameters could be many, but there are 4 simple steps that are listed out, which if followed will give us the right results. So, these 4 steps are not explicitly mentioned in any textbook, but if you try to follow these at least, then you can have confidence of solving complex circuits as well. Let us see now. The first one, step 1, analyze if the given circuit is series or parallel. Sometimes there will be combination of series and parallel. So, just carefully see which part is in series, which part is in parallel. Now, step 2, calculate the total or effective resistance. So, suppose it is a series circuit, we know how to calculate R effective. If it is parallel circuit, we know how to calculate R effective. Step 3, calculate the total current. Now, from Ohm's law, we know total current is total voltage by total R effective, the effective resistance. So, I is equal to V by R. And now we come to the most important thing. Step 4, if at all it is a series circuit, you will be asked to find out what are the individual voltages across each of these resistors. Now, or if your circuit is parallel, calculate the individual currents through each of these resistors. So, these are the 4 very simple and basic steps which will help us a lot in solving numericals based on series and parallel circuits. Let us see how do we apply them. Now, look at this question. An electric lamp whose resistance is 20 ohms and a conductor of 4 ohm resistance are connected to a 6 volt battery. So, there are 2 resistors now, one is 20, one is 4 ohm, they are connected to 6 volt battery. The circuit diagram is given. Now, just by look at this, just by a glance at this diagram, we know that this is a series circuit, because the resistor, the conductor and the lamp are connected end to end. They are asking us to calculate total resistance, total current through the circuit, and potential difference or voltage across the electric lamp and the conductor. Now, let us see how do we solve them. So, this is the circuit given for us now. So, this is the conductor, this is the lamp. So, step 1, is this series or parallel? Now, we have identified that this is series circuit. So, this is a series circuit. Step 2, they are asking us to calculate. So, as per the step 2, we need to calculate the total or effective resistance. R effective is what? 4 ohms plus 20 ohms. So, that is 24 ohms. So, 24 ohms will be the total effective resistance in the circuit. Step 3, the total current they are asking, I total. From Ohm's law, it is nothing but V by R. So, we have this mnemonic diagram V I R. So, I will be V by R. So, voltage is given for us, the value 6 divided by 24, 1 by 4 amperes. So, step 1, we know it is series circuit. Step 2, the R effective is calculated 24 ohms. Step 3, I total is calculated 1/4 of an ampere. Step 4, because this is series circuit, there is a branching of voltage or there is a division of voltage. So, the 6 volts, part of it will get divided across this and part of it falls here, 6 volts, because it is series circuit. Now, let us see voltage across the 4 ohm. So, when I write V 4 ohm, which means the voltage across the 4 ohm resistor, voltage is nothing but current into resistance. V is equal to I into R from Ohm's law. What is the current? Series circuit, total current is constant. So, whatever 1/4 ampere is there in the circuit, so 1/4 ampere is the current in the circuit, same 1/4 ampere passes through this and also 1/4 ampere passes through this. Now, I know the current, I know the resistance, so voltage will be I into R, that is 1/4 into 4, that is 1 volt. So, here there is a potential difference or voltage of 1 volt that is measured. Now, voltage across the 20 ohm resistor, I want to know the voltage, I know the current, I know the resistance. Multiply both of them, I into R will be the voltage. So, 1 by 4 into 20, it will be 5 volts. So, 1 volt here and 5 volts here. Now, look at this, very important. 1 volt and 5 volt together add up to 6 volts. So, the total voltage is getting divided in the ratio 1:5. So, 1 volt here, 5 volts here, when they get divided, the total, when you sum it up, you will get the final value of 6 volts. So, this is a very simple problem based on series circuits, and let us go to the next numerical. Look at this circuit, series of resistors connected in parallel across a voltage source. So, the question goes thus. In the circuit diagram given, suppose the resistors R1, R2 and R3 have the values 5 ohms, 10 ohms and 30 ohms respectively, which have been connected to a battery of 12 volts. Calculate the current through each resistor, the total current in the circuit, the total circuit resistance. Now, have a look at all the 3 questions that are asked. They are asking us, because this is a parallel circuit, current through each resistor they are asking, the total current they are asking and the total circuit resistance. So, let us see how do we go about that. Let us solve this numerical. Now, step 1 shows that this is a parallel circuit. Step 2, as per our second step, we are supposed to calculate the effective resistance. 1 by R effective will be 1 by 5 plus 1 by 10 plus 1 by 30. Now, let us take the reciprocal. 1 by R effective will be 10 by 30, which is 1 by 3. So, therefore, R effective will be 3 ohms. So, the overall effective resistance, once we calculate in parallel, we get the effective resistance as 3 ohms. So, R effective is calculated as 3 ohms. Step 3, the total current, let us calculate. Total current, I total is total voltage by total effective resistance. So, total voltage is 12 by total voltage is 12 and total resistance we calculated as 3 ohms. So, the total current will be 4 amperes. I total, once we calculate, we get it as 4 amperes. Now, see what happens. This 4 amperes which is there, it goes all the way like this and here it branches out. So, 4 amperes, some part of the current goes here, some part of the current flows through the R2, some part flows through R3, combines at this point, it splits here and then combines here, this current. So, it goes like this, joins here, this travels through, the current travels through this second resistor, or easier to remember for us our example toll gate, and here it passes through this and arrives here, and here all the 3 currents add up again, the 4 amperes flows. It completes the circuit now. Now, logically we have to measure, like logically our calculations should tell that the current passing through the least resistance here, 5 ohm resistor, should be more, because lesser the resistance, more current. Here, and this is the maximum resistance that is given. So, very least amount of current should flow through R3 or 30 ohms. Let us calculate this. Step 4, individual currents we want to calculate. So, what is the voltage between these 2 points? It is 12 volts. Voltage between these 2 points is 12 volts. Voltage between these 2 points is also 12 volts. Now, let us see, I know the resistance here, I know the voltage. So, current through the first resistor I is equal to V by R. So, voltage is 12 by 5, if we calculate we get 2.4 amperes. I2 will be V by R2, this is R1 5, V, voltage is same in parallel. So, the same 12 volts, R2 is 10, we get 1.2 amperes. I3 will be V by R3, 12 by 30, this is 30 ohm, 0.4 amperes. Now, see, current through the first resistor, because the resistance value is small, larger part of current flows through the first resistor and through the greatest value of resistance. Now, look at this, R3 is having maximum value, that is 30 ohms. So, because R3 is having 30 ohms, least current 0.4. So, if you see I1, I2, I3, current is minimum when it flows through the greatest resistance. Current is maximum when it flows through smallest resistance, and if we add all of these, if we add up all the currents, let us say we are supposed to get 4 amperes as per the calculation. Let us see, 2.4 plus 1.2, 3.6 plus 0.4, 4 amperes. So, the total current of 4 amperes is getting divided as 2.4 amperes plus 1.2 amperes plus 0.4 amperes. So, this is how the split in current is happening. While in the previous numerical, because it is a series circuit, we have seen that the voltage is getting divided. Because this is a parallel circuit, we observe that the currents are getting divided. Current is largest for the smallest resistance value, current is smallest for the largest resistance value. So, like this you can pick up any number of numericals. So, while there is complexity when we add or remove resistors, but eventually these 4 steps will make us to minimize our complexity and again arrive at the correct result. So, this is a systematic way of approach. This numerical could also be solved in a different way. Because I know the individual values, I can first calculate all my currents, individual currents, I can add them up and get this 4 amperes, and then I can go to the total overall effective resistance. So, the alternative method of solving the same numerical we will be taking up in the next lecture while we continue with the further topics. Let us see. Next module we discuss about the heating effects of electric current. Now, electric current as it passes through different resistors, we see that there is heat that is dissipated in day to day life. When we observe, suppose current is passing through a component like fan. So, after 3 or 4 hours, once the fan is functional, if you touch the basement of the fan, we observe that the body of the fan will become hot, because the electrical energy is getting converted not only to do mechanical work, but also it is giving out heat energy. Similarly, a filament or a bulb is there. After few hours of the bulb being functional, if you touch the surface of the bulb, we can feel the heat. So, therefore, current also produces, like current produces the energy of the electrical current, also converts itself into heat energy. Now, look at this, there is a simple circuit that is shown here. So, a simple resistor is there, a switch, ammeter connected in its position series, voltmeter connected in parallel, and a battery which is driving the current. Now, in this we know how do we define power. Power is nothing but the rate at which the work is done. So, electrical power will be the rate at which electrical work is being done, or rate at which the electrical energy is dispensed. So, energy per unit time or work done per unit time. So, W by T, when I write W from the definition of voltage, when we look back at the definition of voltage, we know that voltage is defined as W by Q, or W will be Q into V. Q is the total charge, V is the voltage. So, I can substitute for W as Q into V divided by T. This Q by T is nothing but our current now. Current is defined as the rate of flow of charge. So, electrical power, so more of power, though we will be discussing in the further slides and further lectures, we will be arriving at one basic formula for the electrical power as V into I. So, when I multiply with time on both sides, power into time is nothing but energy or work done, electrical energy is Vi into T. So, this is the expression for the electrical energy. So, in the given circuit, for me it is always easy to calculate the currents. So, therefore, I know the total resistance, I know the current. So, therefore, electrical energy will be I square R into T. V is nothing but I into R from the Ohm's law. So, therefore, V is I into R, and there is a I that is multiplied I square into R into time. So, this last step that we see here, electrical energy is I square RT. It is a very famous equation that is dealt in the current electricity, and this is called Joule's law of heating. So, when you pass current through a resistor, the heat energy generated in the resistor is expressed by this formula. If we know the current, we use this expression. Suppose current is not stated directly, if you know the voltage and resistance, we get the value of current by dividing I is equal to V by R, and this particular form of expression for the electrical the heat energy is called the Joule's law of heating. Let us see what this Joule's law states. Joule's law implies that the heat produced in the resistor is directly proportional to the square of current for a given resistance. So, therefore, in the circuit, if you are able to observe, now electric current flows from the positive terminal all the way, it flows through the resistor and comes back. So, the electric current which is passing through the resistor generates heat, and that heat when it flows through the resistor depends on the square of the current. H is directly proportional to I square, as we observe. H is directly proportional to the resistance, which means what? Suppose I increase the current, the heat generated also increases in the resistor. If I reduce the current, the heat will be lower. Similarly, if the resistance is more, we will be seeing appliances like electric iron, water heater, all these have very high resistance. So, therefore, the heat generated, so those components are purely used only for extracting heat from the given current. So, that will be the main part of the job. So, all the energy, electrical energy that we supply, maximum is converted to heat. Now, the second point states that heat energy is directly proportional to the resistance. And finally, heat is directly proportional to the time for which the current flows through the resistor. Suppose you leave fan for 3 hours and check the amount of heat that is generated. After 7 or 8 hours, once we check, definitely we know that heat increases, because the more time the energy, electrical energy is flowing through that component, it takes more heat. So therefore, heat energy depends on all the three expressions. Heat energy as per the Joule's law will be I square into R into T, and it is directly related. So changing any of these, increasing any of these components or increasing all of these values will increase the amount of heat generated. Reducing any one of them or reducing all the three parameters, I or resistance or time, will reduce the heat that is generated. So let us see some of the applications. So these appliances, electric iron, electric toaster, electric oven, kettle and heater, these are some of the appliances which are based on Joule's law of heating. Now what do these do? So these are designed in such a way that they are having very high resistance. So when the current flows through them, so most of the electrical energy is being converted to heat energy, though there is very minimal loss of energy. For example, what is the useful work for a fan? All the energy it has to take, electrical energy, and it should do useful work in like mechanical energy. It should, all the electrical energy should be converted to mechanical energy. But the heat which is a byproduct is a loss for us now. Similarly, light, it's supposed to give, it's supposed to emit the radiation, it's supposed to light the room. But what happens? In the part of that, some part of energy also goes for heat. So these appliances are designed in such a way that maximum amount of electrical energy is getting converted to heat energy directly. Now let us go to the second point. The electric heating is also used to produce light in an electric bulb. Let us see how it happens. So all of us would have seen this electric bulb which has a filament inside. So as the current passes, the filament, let us see the properties of the filament now. The filament must retain as much of the heat generated so that it gets very hot and emits light. So we observe that something that gets hot, eventually it radiates light as well. Some of these electric irons, some of these components, if we observe carefully, these wires, when they get extremely hot, they also generate, they emit some light. So what is the role of the filament of the electric bulb? It has to take in the electrical energy and it has to retain, it should not leave it out. The heat should not be dissipated. Most of the heat it should contain, and that heat energy should be given out as light energy. It should not melt at such high temperature. Now what happens? As this filament retains heat, the material of that should not melt away because of the heat. So therefore, strong material with high melting point such as tungsten. So this is precisely the reason why tungsten is used in the filaments of electric bulb, because it is having a melting point of 3380 degrees Celsius. So at such high temperature when it is made, it does not melt. So it is used for making bulbs, filaments of the electric bulbs, and also filament should be thermally isolated, and this is also main reason why the heat content should not be given out. It should be able to retain that heat. So all the electrical energy should be converted to heat energy, and heat energy should not be dissipated away, the metal should not be melting, and all the heat should be converted to light energy. So the bulbs are usually filled with chemically inactive nitrogen and argon gases so that they prolong the life of the filament, which means what? They do not allow the heat to be dissipated away. So this is one application. So electrical energy to heat and eventually heat to light energy. Let us go to the next one. Another common application is fuse used in the electric circuits. We all would have seen this fuse. So what is the basic role of a fuse? It protects the circuits from breaking. It stops. So suppose it's like a gate. Any excess amount of current is flowing, that quickly breaks the circuit and protects the components. Let us see how it looks. The fuse looks like this, electric fuse, we would have seen this. So these are the earlier versions of fuse. This is how it used to look few years before. Now these have been replaced with MCBs and various other components. But let us see the basic working and functioning of the fuse. It consists of a piece of wire made of a metal or alloy of appropriate melting point. Now what is this wire? How should this wire function? If a current larger than the specified value flows through the circuit, the temperature of the fuse wire increases and therefore heat increases and it melts and breaks the circuit. So this is like after the main electric board, they place these fuses in the house. So what is the role of this? So the household, so each component should require a minimum amount of current. Suppose any excess amount of current flows, what will happen? There will be malfunctioning of the components. So what will happen? This will be like a check, toll gate check. So if suppose any right amount of current is flowing, so this fuse wire will act as a conducting material, it will allow the current to flow through. Now suppose there is any excess current, by chance there is something like voltage fluctuation. So any excess current, what will happen, this fuse wire, as the current flows through this, so because this is designated only to withhold certain amount of electrical energy or the heat energy, any excess energy will melt this away. So what will happen, this wire will disappear, it melts away and there is a gap in the circuit. So what will happen, the current will not reach the component and hence the components are protected. So this is the role of a fuse wire. The fuse wire is usually encased in a cartridge of porcelain or similar material with metal end. So there should be a metal end because this should connect, this should be inserted in the circuit. So this is the use of a fuse wire, and the fuse wire is usually encased in a cartridge of porcelain or similar material with metal ends. Why? Because this will connect, the metal ends will allow the current to flow into the wire and out of the fuse wire. So the whole thing is a conductor and the fuse allows a certain amount of current. So as much the circuit is needing, that much current will be allowed to flow. Suppose any excess current flows, so this will break. So this is one of the another application of electric current. So with this we conclude the lecture on applications of electric current, but before that I would like you all to observe this particular equipment which we use generally in our day-to-day life. So this is the water heater in general. So this is the metal that, so current, so the moment you plug in the socket, what happens, current flows through the wires and this metal, this will get heated up. So this heat will be transferred to the water, but with a precaution, when we are inserting this into the water, we should be careful that we should keep an insulator or like wood or plastic or some material, so that when the prevention is there, the current will not flow through us. Suppose by chance there is some leakage of current, this should be properly insulated. So one way of insulating is through the ground wire, this pin which we will be discussing a bit later, but this is a direct application of heating effect of current. The current flows into the metal of the wire and this particular current, this energy will be used to heat the water. So this is one example. Of course, these have been replaced by geysers in the modern day times, but this is the earlier way in which they used to extract heat energy from the electrical energy. So with this we conclude our lecture, this particular lecture on series and parallel circuits, heating effects of electric current and applications of heating effects, and further we will be discussing about the electric power and electrical energy. Sai Ram and thank you.